Hello, my name is Aaron Peña, and in this presentation, I wanted to share a few key takeaway and reflections from the two readings focused on inclusive mathematics teaching, which I'm pretty sure I think I've mentioned it before. I teach eighth grade in a campus in McAllen, and as I talk through these slides, I'm trying to connect the ideas from the readings to my own classroom and my experiences as usual. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. So the very first key takeaway comes from the article or the readings from, I believe the pronunciation is Yi. This reading really challenged the idea that inclusion is just about where students are placed. Inclusion is about participation. I believe students need opportunity to actively engage in thinking, explaining, and making sense of mathematics, not just completing work that looks easier or different than their peers' work, right? So it's about truly being inclusive. So why this matters to me, it stood out because in my personal eighth grade classroom, I often see some students shut down when the math feels like it's only about speed or getting the answer quickly or just plugging in, like when it becomes routine. So what I started to do was design lessons that include visuals, a lot of turn and talk, partner talk, shoulder talk, uh, face partner talk. So trying to give them multiple ways to find discourse with students that are within their proximity and opportunities without. They also have quadrant partners. And so, we have like go to your bestie in the class, go to maybe a good friend, go to somebody maybe you don't talk to a lot. And then, so they have the four quadrants, they have to pick people, and then I'll just randomly say, okay, let's go and into your quadrant four partners, and so they're not always the best friends they're comfortable with, and they gotta talk the mathematics, right? Because then they have to highlight keys of what their partner said and why it mattered towards the lesson. And so it just refines that vocabulary, which is super important. And so it doesn't matter if they're low, mid, high, the discourse happening within the unit, because no matter where you're at, the rigor needs to be the same for the students, and so the discourse really helps. And so I believe that by doing that, we have different ways to represent the thinking. So again, more the students are staying engaged and feeling comfortable contributing, right? And it's about that positive classroom environment. The second takeaway comes from Padilla and the other colleagues who emphasize that teaching mathematics is not just neutral. Things like tracking, testing, which this is the third week that we mentioned tracking, testing, and special education systems shape who gets access to rigorous mathematics and who is seen as capable, which is it's honestly a horrible take. The idea of political conocimiento really helps me name these tensions, a lot more clearly. So why does this matter? Because at my Title One campus, we mostly serve Latino students. So I constantly try to balance preparing students for tests while also wanting them to experience math as meaningful and empowering. So the readings really help me reflect on how some of the pressures come from the systems, right? From admin. I know that actually our POCs are heavy on accountability and trying to meet, the A, trying to maintain the A that we have. So it's more about the pressures that come from the systems, not from my own students' abilities, and why it's important to question these deficit thinkings, right? And so it is very frustrating that at the end of the day, the students need to meet because of the accountability, and it sort of, again, it politicizes our teaching, our the way we plan things, because they want list of students that we need to focus on because they're low, because they're mid, because they're high. How are we reaching to those students? And so it's kind of frustrating. And again, whenever I can and I have the flexibility, I don't track in that manner. It's like I mentioned last week and the week before. I track more about the growth mindset, celebrating student success over time. The third takeaway focuses on creative resistance and collective action. Inclusive teaching often means pushing back against practices that limit opportunities, such as fixed ability groups or putting an overemphasis on procedures. It also reminds me that this work shouldn't be done alone, but alongside colleagues. And so I have a very, very, very supportive system in my coworker. We plan a lot, and it's not just about, well, who's low, who's, because again, we mentioned about the tracking. That particular colleague is very minded, like with me, similarly minded, and so we plan our lessons to ensure that the discord is happening. We actually just plan some bell ringers, when they come in. They're more about the reflection and like the thinking versus just the procedures, which we don't like drill and kill, which is that one of the vocabulary words that admin loves to use. We don't do that. It's more about the reflection because it maintains the knowledge in the brain for our students. So this was a big takeaway for me. So why this matters to my practice? In my experience, students learn best when they work together on rich tasks and are encouraged to explain their thinking. When we challenge practices that label students or limit access, we then create more space for students to see themselves as capable mathematicians, which is, my personal goal at the end of the day. Besides at meeting admin goals, right? To still maintaining compliance, because I mean I still want my job, but I try to put that, I guess we can call it the hidden agenda, where, or not agenda, but like a curriculum where students are having that meaningful discourse, uh, and still meeting goals. So in my classroom, inclusive mathematics looks like giving all students access to grade level tasks, providing multiple entry points, slowing down the pace, and valuing thinking over speed. These readings reinforce that inclusion benefits everyone, not just a few students. So here are the references for this week. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on next week. Bye bye.